little bit late. Those of you unfamiliar with U of T time, we're always behind 10 minutes for some reason. Nothing starts on the hour. So sincere apologies. But welcome. And we're gonna, as soon as Julia, if you can let me know that everyone's in, we can.
Everyone is in so far.
All right. So let's try and make this quick because you're not here to really hear us talk. With that, I would remind you to mute your mics unless you're talking. With that, Chris, do you want to start? B, do you want to start with acknowledgements?
Yes, thank you, Joseph, and welcome everybody. We wish to acknowledge this land on which the University of Toronto operates. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and the most recently, the Mississaugas of the Credit River. Today, this meeting place is still the home of many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land. And my other welcome is to also say thank you all for joining us. My name is Chris Bomeister. I'm in biomedical engineering at the University of Toronto. I'm an assistant professor in the teaching stream, and my main day job is leading capstone design classes, mainly for engineering students, but I also have some multidisciplinary classes with students across arts and science. So I really enjoy seeing where these open-ended projects go and lead. I'd also, do we have the next slide? Is that one a little bit about biomedical engineering? Okay, it's my pleasure also to introduce my dean from the Faculty of Applied Science and Engineering, Dr. Christopher Yip.
Great, thanks, Chris, for the introduction. As Chris mentioned, so I'm Chris Yip, the Dean of the Faculty of Engineering here at University of Toronto. It really is a pleasure to be here at the launch of this, the Ideation Challenge, to hear about the opportunities that this is going to represent for our students, the opportunity to bring multiple institutions together on a really exciting opportunity. As Chris indicated, one of the things we do well at all of our institutions is actually present our students with open-ended challenges, ways to bring multidisciplinary teams together to create just a sense of excitement and an opportunity and to see what they can do. We know our students have awesome thoughts. They're extremely creative, extremely innovative, and love deep challenges. And this is something that we seek to encourage through many of our entrepreneurial activities. Here at U of T, we've got our hatchery opportunity. We've got lots of capstone opportunities. And I know this is something which pervades all of our institutions across the country. So I'm really glad to be part of this, to have the Praxis Challenge come through. Many thanks to Bill and his team and to Joseph for being such a force of nature in moving this project forward. So we're really happy to be here today. And I'm going to hand it back to, I guess I hand it back to Joseph to continue. So welcome, everyone.
So thank you, Chris. Thank you for enabling this and championing this through all of our institutions, as we'll get a chance to talk. But first, I'd like to say that this is for students, but it's also for the broader community. This is for Canada, Canadians, and all of us to sort of think about innovation. So I'd like to turn this over to Arushi and Bill, who really have enabled this, and for them to say a little bit about the Praxis Spinal Cord Institute.
Happy to do that. Would you like me to go first, Rushi?
Yes, please.
Can everyone hear me? So first of all, thanks very much Joseph and the Chris's for introducing the program. We're really excited about this development of this program. I grew up in Galt, Ontario, so I know Waterloo region very well, and I know about the great universities in that area. And you could swing a cat in Galt, and you'd hit 4 universities. You'd hit Laurier and Waterloo and Guelph and McMaster, all really outstanding reasons why that area of the country leads in its economic innovation. And I went to Della at the UT, so I have a soft spot for that. And I lived in Alberta, so I know Calgary. And we're just really delighted to be working with the BC universities as well, like SFU and others. So maybe a little bit about Praxis before I turn it over to Rushi. But Praxis, we have a vision. It's a world without paralysis after spinal cord injury. And we lead global collaboration in spinal cord injury research, innovation, and care. We've got sites, partners all over the world, and we're particularly in love with bioengineering, biodesign programs internationally. And of course, we've got some of the best in the world in our own country. We accelerate the translation of discoveries into improved quality of life. And we achieve this, through resources, infrastructure that we provide, and knowledge to make a life-changing impact on health outcomes for people with SCI. And a key to that is engaging people with spinal cord injury all along the way, really from the very beginning. This is one of the things that Arushi describes as our special sauce when it comes to the commercialization program. So engaging people with lived experiences is essential to ensuring that we set the priorities in the research and the innovation that reflect the needs of the people who have SCI. In doing so, we ensure our work is relevant and will have a significant impact on quality of life and health later on. So our impact is strengthened through unique, consumer-engaged programs that support the advancement of creative ideas. And we do that in our research program as well, our translational research program. So the Praxis Spinal Cord Injury Ideation Challenge program starts at the discovery stage and continues through the innovation pathway to prototype, excuse me, where eventually products gain the potential to move into the commercialization programs like the Praxis SCI Incubate. Innovative health technologies for SCI are urgently needed today. We need a pipeline. We know there are great ideas out there, but we've got to get our problems onto the horizon of people who are smart developers of solutions, engineers. We love engineers, especially bioengineers. We recognize the deep value that partnerships like those with the UT can bring to health innovation, and through programs like the Ideation Challenge and the other institutional partners. We're also very proud that our work is supported by Western Economic Diversification Canada. And without that generous partnership from the federal government, our work would not be possible. Our community really looks forward to these exciting ideas to come, and hopefully this will be a model for others as well. And in the future, maybe some additional institutions will get on board. So again, thank you. Special thanks to our UT friends. But to all of you from all of the universities, we'd like to think of ourselves as pioneering this program. And so thank you very kindly. And with that, I'll turn it over to Rishi.
Thanks so much, Bill. And thank you everyone for introducing this competition. Really excited to launch what I believe is the first national, dare I say even international call for ideas to address spinal cord injury. This is a very exciting moment for Praxis, but I hope also for health innovation in Canada. And what I really like about the design of this project when we first thought about it and collaborated with our universities were two things. One is this competition is open to everyone. So regardless of discipline, regardless of where you are in Canada or even in the world, we'd like you to learn a little bit about these challenges and share ideas and help move us forward. The second is, what I really love about ideation is ideas give you an opportunity to explore and transform into something that could be valuable. So this is a great opportunity for us to come together with the SCI community, with our clinical teams, with the universities across Canada, to really come up with as many ideas and validate them through a really exciting pathway. The second thing I really like is the learning environment we're creating in this competition. So all of you as participants, we hope that this competition is not just an opportunity to pitch, but also get great feedback and really learn in this series of workshops, and get to engage with some of the healthcare challenges we talk about a lot in our organization. What I learned coming into the SCI spinal cord injury space with a background in health tech was a lot of the issues faced by individuals with spinal cord injury are issues faced across Canada, internationally, in our health systems by individuals across the world. So if we have an opportunity to address any of these challenges here, there's amazing potential for long-term impact across the health system. And we're really excited to be part of that. The last thing I'll say is, as we look at some of these challenges, spinal cord injury, which John will talk to you about, a lot of them are not what you expect. A lot of them, keep your mind open around what you think the challenge is that we're trying to solve, and iterate and engage with us so that we really, really understand the problem really well. Following this program, and we have these amazing opportunities to follow on your ideas. So I'd be remiss not to mention that Praxis runs an Incubate program as well as an Accelerate program. And as you go through this journey, please, as you get more and more into the prototyping phase, please see some of these opportunities for downstream collaboration and support available to you, as well as all the opportunities and all the universities we've partnered with. Lastly, good luck, and we really look forward to the ideas coming forward in this session.
Should I just jump in here, Joseph?
I think you should.
Fantastic. All right. So thank you for having me. My name is John Terneski. I'm the manager of the Consumer Engagement Program at the Praxis Spinal Cord Institute, and I'm joined by my colleague Richard Peter, who's our Indigenous Peoples Liaison. And we're going to sort of tag team a little bit through this slide deck. We'll see how it goes. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, if that's okay, Joseph. I've got a slide deck here ready to go. So what I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit, I'm going to touch on a few different things. First of all, we're going to talk about the impact of spinal cord injury and why this challenge matters because of the impact that spinal cord injury has, not just on the health system, but on people with spinal cords in general. Then we're going to talk a bit about knowledge translation and the movement of idea to implementation. We'll move forward with a bit of a background on what spinal cord injury is and how it impacts people in their day-to-day living. And then I'm going to showcase to you guys some of the recent innovations that have come out in the last few years to sort of, give you guys a bit of inspiration towards some of the innovations that you might want to develop, or maybe you've already got some ideas on what you could create. So just a little something to whet your appetite before I pass back to Joseph and his amazing team to tell you a bit more about the actual challenge itself. So let's get started. So here's a quick slide on the reality of spinal cord injury from the perspective of the health systems. What we know is that over 86,000 people in Canada are living with spinal cord injury, and that's over 4,000 new cases every year. So in the grand scheme of things, it's a relatively small market, but not a non-substantial market. It occurs from falls, high velocity impacts from crashes or sports, assaults and other causes. And it's an extremely expensive health condition. As you can see, the lifetime costs for quadriplegia is over $3 million, and it costs the Canadian healthcare system approximately $2.7 billion per year. As well, it leads to a lot of reuse of the hospital systems and other healthcare practitioners. So all in all, to the Canadian healthcare system, a very expensive condition for people to live with. But it's not just about how this impacts the healthcare system. Spinal cord injury is a devastating injury, and it impacts every system in the human body and can lead to significant costs to the individuals that sustain these injuries. Unemployment rates amongst persons with disabilities is exceptionally high, and that includes persons with spinal cord injury. the reduced mobility and various other issues that are caused by spinal cord injury can lead to serious impacts on a person's mental health, including social isolation. The physical environment is not terribly well adapted for persons with limited mobility, as I think we're all aware. There's an increased burden on family and caregivers. As well, what we see quite a lot is a forced relocation to urban centers where accessibility and access to specialized medical practitioners is more readily available. And this is really a relocation to urban centers that a lot of people don't wish to undertake. They'd much rather stay in their home communities. So that's just a quick snapshot on the impact that it provides on people. And we'll talk a bit more about this at the March 15th follow-up webinar, but I just wanted to give you guys a little taste. So what is Praxis trying to do here? Why are we in this field? And why are we trying to accelerate translation? When we look at health research in general, we see that we're really stuck on repeat. The process in health research is write a grant, get some money, do the research, and publish your results. And that's the end of it. The goal is to get the publications, because the more publications, the more likely you're going to get more grants. And the more grants you get, the more publications you get, the more likely you're going to get tenure. What we're missing out of this equation is impact. Where does health research lead to positive impact for people living with the health conditions that research is being undertaken towards? And that's really where Praxis is looking to make a shift in the way that research is done. We look at the translation of ideas to clinical practice. We talk about the valleys of death, where research struggles to translate from discovery research into clinical research, and again, from clinical research into clinical practice. And that's where the Praxis commercialization program comes in. As you see across the bottom there, we look at the ideation, where we're at right now with this challenge, into the incubation and development of ideas. And then we look to accelerate, to validate them and get them into working prototypes that have been validated by the end user population. And that's the next step towards actual clinical implementation, where they're being regulatorily approved and reimbursed and being used in a widespread fashion. So really, this is sort of a joint model where we're looking at health research and commercialization jointly in concert to try to bring these innovations to market to have positive impact on people with spinal cord injuries. So what does a typical research team look like? Well, usually you have a researcher, and that researcher has an idea. What's the idea? I'm going to create the greatest wheelchair that's ever been made. But we all know research isn't done in isolation. Research is done in teams. So who are we going to bring into this team? Well, if I'm making a wheelchair, I'm probably going to bring in a physiotherapist. They understand human physiology and how the body moves. Maybe an occupational therapist who prescribes durable medical equipment like wheelchairs. Probably going to need somebody who understands metals and materials. Probably get an engineer on board. And having a manufacturer would probably be a good idea to make sure that we can move this towards market and mass production. But who's missing from this equation? The individuals who sit in a wheelchair 8, 10, 12, 16 hours a day. They truly are experts in the field. And if we ignore them from this thought process, we're doing so at our own peril. Research works in teams, and you need to engage all the stakeholders who are relevant to making sure that your product has the potential to make it to market. We practice a model called integrated knowledge translation, where meaningful engagement of the right research users at the right time throughout the research process. You'll notice in that line there that nowhere does it say person with a spinal cord injury. It says the right research users. And oftentimes that right research user is going to be a person with a spinal cord injury. But from the outsets of your projects, from the very ideation, you need to think about who are the stakeholders in this work? Who do I need to engage with to ensure that this is going to move to the next level? Who's going to take this up? And if you consider that and you reach out to them, you engage with them early, you engage with them often, and you engage with them throughout the entire process, you're going to find that by the time you get to the end, to the dissemination, to the implementation, to the advocacy that it might take to get that regulatory and reimbursement approval, you're going to have inbuilt advocates. You're going to have a group of people that have been working with you on this project throughout, who want to see it succeed and can have a positive influence on helping it to succeed. So why do we practice IKT? Well, simple. The root of experience is expertise, or of expertise is experience. And people living with spinal cord injury have tremendous expertise in living with spinal cord injury, and they can bring unique perspective to the work that you're undertaking. You know, I don't think that Apple or any major product manufacturer would ever consider developing any, you know, consumer product without consulting with their consumers. And I think that's the same for health research. It's also quite simple that those affected by a decision have a right to be a part of the decision-making process. We live in a democracy, not a dictatorship. We feel that we should have a voice. And I think in health research, it's important that those that are meant to be impacted positively by the research should have a voice in it. And really, it comes down to the simple line, nothing about us without us. But if that doesn't sell it to you enough, consumer engagement in research has been shown to increase enrollment rates, aid in securing funding, and improve study design, protocols, and choice of relevant outcome measures. All good reasons to bring people that are key stakeholders and end users of your product in from the outset and throughout. Let me just take a sip of juice here. For those of you that'll be joining us, hopefully all of you, on March 15th, we'll be going through a bit more detail about integrated knowledge translation and also about the basics of spinal cord injury. But for the time we have today, I'm just going to give you a quick overview of what spinal cord injury is. First and foremost, spinal cord injury is unique. I've had my spinal cord injury since 1993. That's over 27 years. And I can tell you, I know thousands of people with spinal cord injury, and no two injuries are the same, much like no two individuals are the same. Dependent on the level in your spine that is injured, it can have a dramatically different effect on how it impacts your body and your functional independence. There's also the severity of the injury, whether that injury is what we call complete or incomplete. A complete injury is described as having no clinically measurable sensory or motor functions below the level of the injury, whereas incomplete injuries, which thankfully, thanks to ongoing innovations in acute care, are becoming the norm and not the exception, is where people have some return of motor or sensory function below the level of injury. So when I say level of injury, what am I describing? Well, as I said, dependent on where in your spine you actually break your spine and damage your spinal cord, it can have a significant effect on what parts of your body are still functioning. So you can see if you get down into the lumbar and even down into the sacral region, you may have paralysis of your lower limbs. When you get up into the thoracic region, you start to impact your torso and trunk function, as well as a lot of the organ systems in the body. And when you get up into the neck, into the cervical region, that's when you start to see impacts in the upper extremities. And that can be something as mild as what I've got with my slightly limited hand function, but still good bicep, tricep, and forearm function, up until you get to C3, C2, where you can have almost no upper extremity function at all, and even limited or no respiratory function. So it really can affect a whole range of areas of motor function and the corresponding sensory function. But one thing I think most people unfamiliar with spinal cord injury may not be aware of is the effect on the autonomic system. For those of you unfamiliar with what an autonomic system is, these are the systems in your body that you cannot consciously control. I'm sure when you were children, you may have threatened your parents that if they didn't do as you pleased, you would hold your breath until you died. Well, that's not really possible. If you hold your breath, eventually you may pass out, but then your autonomic nervous system will kick in and get you breathing again. That is, unless you've damaged your spinal cord and your autonomic nervous system is no longer functioning. Those autonomic dysfunctions can affect a whole host of areas from bowel and bladder and sexual function. We'll get into that in a bit more detail. As a result of this reduction in motor and sensory function, as well as autonomic function, people living with spinal cord injury are susceptible to a whole host of secondary complications. We touched on some of the psychosocial and mental health aspects of it. I talked just a bit about respiratory function and dysfunction. There's also a lot of cardiovascular complications, blood pressure stabilization, a severe life-threatening condition called autonomic dysreflexia, where noxious stimulus can cause a very high elevation in blood pressure, which can lead to heart attack, stroke, or embolism, which is really quite dangerous. We touched on trunk mobility. Another major issue is pressure injury. And when we think about pressure injury, the three most significant risk factors for pressure injuries, also maybe commonly known as bed sores, are reduced mobility, reduced sensation, and reduced circulation. All three of which are found in an individual with a spinal cord injury. So as Rishi mentioned earlier, there is a high translatability of what occurs within persons with spinal cord injury to other health conditions. We know that pressure injuries are quite common in diabetics, where diabetics have reduced circulation and reduced sensation. If you can solve the problem for spinal cord injury, the likelihood that that's translatable to something like diabetes or elderly populations is very likely. I also mentioned bladder and bowel dysfunction, sexual dysfunction. We talked about upper limb dysfunction, which can go anywhere from finger dexterity right up to bicep, tricep, and shoulder function. So the whole length of the upper extremity, lower limbs, bone loss due to osteoporosis, or osteoporosis due to bone loss, actually, and neuropathic pain and spasticity, which can be extremely debilitating. I think we know there's an opioid crisis throughout the world. Neuropathic pain is occasionally treated by opioids, and if we can find a solution for neuropathic pain, perhaps we can find solutions to the opioid crisis as well. And just to touch on that more than 80% of people living with spinal cord injury reported at least one secondary complication related to the spinal cord injury in the previous year. So these are quite common and quite in urgent need of addressing with solutions. So we talked about some of those challenges. I'll just touch on them. Neuropathic pain, there's no known effective treatment for neuropathic pain. Neuropathic pain is different than the commonly considered nociceptive pain or muscle pain or bone joint pain. Neuropathic pain is somewhat different and is not very well managed by opioids, gabapentinoids, cannabis, meditation, or mindfulness. So innovations in this area are very much welcomed. Spasticity as well. There's a lot of treatments available, but they also have a lot of side effects, and none of them are terribly successful in addressing spasticity. Neurogenic bladder is the inability to retain urine or void naturally. Recurrent urinary tract infections are common and can lead to sepsis and high antibiotic use. A lot of people with spinal cord injury are reliant on clean intermittent catheters or indwelling catheters for urinary continence. Key challenges also include things like pressure injuries, which we talked about, the reduced sensation, circulation, and mobility. Bowel dysfunction is a very high concern for people with spinal cord injury. And really, there have been very limited innovations in this area, well, since I was injured 27 years ago and probably sometime before that. The inability to manage bowel movements is an issue, either through incontinence or inability to empty the bowels. And it can also have a significant impact, spinal cord injury can, on microbiome dysbiosis, which can also lead to reduced immune function. We talked about reduced mobility. You see a lot of people using wheelchairs, but with this increase in incomplete spinal cord injuries, a lot of people are semi-ambulatory or partially ambulatory, and new devices like advances in wheelchair technology, exoskeletons, and power assist devices are coming out. And we also talked about autonomic dysreflexia. It's a dysregulation of the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous systems, where the body is not able to suppress the fight or flight mechanism, which can often be activated by noxious stimuli that normally wouldn't cause an adverse reaction in non-spinal cord injured human beings, such as bowel or bladder distension, sexual activity, some sort of injury below the body, or a type of infection. As I said, it's potentially life-threatening and can affect anyone with a spinal cord injury at the levels of T6 or above. So that's a lot to swallow. Sorry, I feel like maybe you guys are drinking from the fire hose there. I'm coming at you quite quickly. So I got quite a few slides I want to get through, and I know your guys' time is precious. So now we'll jump into some of the innovations that have come to the market over the last few years. Just to give you an idea of some of the areas that you might want to explore with your ideas, and give you a small sampling of the breadth of scope where you might be able to address issues that affect people with spinal cord injury and also persons with other health conditions. And as I go through these, I want you to think not just about people with spinal cord injury, but people with other health conditions that may be impacted and could be used, that they could find these innovations useful. So this is what it looked like back in the good old days. The good old days. These were your options. If you wanted to get out of bed and you wanted to go anywhere, this was your freedom. This was your feet. This was your boots. This is what was going to get you around. Now they look a little bit more like this. These are two of the latest wheelchairs to hit the market: the Kushal Superstar and the Phoenix Instinct. Of note, you think, oh, wheelchair design, that's kind of blasé, not very interesting or not very exciting. The wheelchair on the right there, the Phoenix Instinct, just won the Toyota Global Mobility Challenge. That was a $1 million prize run by a similar challenge to this, run by Toyota. And it's a weight shifting, active, artificial intelligence built wheelchair, manual wheelchair. So there's definitely a lot of room for innovation in this, and there's certainly a lot of money to be made in this area. We live in the age of lithium ion. I think you guys have all seen scooters going around. Everybody is interested in getting an electric bike. Wheelchair users are no different. These are two innovations we commonly refer to as powered front drives. They're attachments you can put onto your manual wheelchair, such as the Klaxon Click or the Baytech Scrambler, which can help you get over rough terrain, increase your freedom of range, and to be honest, they're just a hell of a lot of fun. Some advancements in technology have led to persons with disabilities achieving amazing things. These are two individuals, Aaron Fotheringham and Josh Duick. Aaron is really considered the godfather of wheelchair motocross, and with his specialized wheelchair, he does backflips over 300-foot gaps. And Josh Duick does backflips on his sit ski. So, the ability to advance technology not just can provide, a business opportunity for people and potential revenue generation, but it also can change the abilities of people with spinal cord injuries and other conditions, mobility conditions or impairments, but also allow them to live their dreams and do wild and quite frankly, amazing things. But they don't always have to be huge. They can be something simple. These are two really unique innovations: the Active Hands gripping device and the Quad Tools gripping device. These are fantastic little tools that help people with limited hand function and dexterity to be able to undertake activities of daily life and increase their independence and reduce their reliance on care providers to assist them with simple everyday activities. There's always room for electrical innovations. Omron has just come out with a blood pressure monitoring watch. I think as people are more and more concerned about their health, having the ability to monitor biomarkers on the go with innovations like the Omron watch are interesting not just to people with spinal cord injury who are concerned about their blood pressure from autonomic dysreflexia and orthostatic hypotension, but to a wider marketplace as well. Spinal cord stimulation is a hugely interesting area of research, which is showing huge promise in reactivating dormant neural circuitry in spinal cord injured persons and allowing them to regain motor function. And a great Canadian innovation, Braze Mobility, recently developed a peripheral proximity device for power wheelchair users and has had huge success and market penetration with a simple device that allows power wheelchair users to know what's behind them, to know what's around them, and to stop them bashing into walls or other people. So a simple but highly useful innovation that's gaining great traction and a Canadian innovation. We talk about mobility. Well, there's the need to get farther than most wheelchairs can take you, or even if you have one of those power assist front drives. There's new innovations coming up in vehicle modifications, such as Kirchhoff Mobility's robotic wheelchair delivery system, or power lifts built into pickup trucks. Just because you have a spinal cord injury doesn't mean you don't want to go 4x4ing anymore. A couple of other innovations you can see here. Neil Squire created the lip sync technology for interacting with touchscreen devices, which are not the best for optical sensing technology. So they use this sip and puff enabled device for persons with very limited upper limb dexterity to interact with touchscreen devices, or even really advanced technology for people with very limited hand function to drive their own vehicles. So far to go as a real rock star, Sam Schmidt, who was paralyzed in a race car crash. And you can imagine he's a bit of an adrenaline junkie with his history in race car driving. He modified a Corvette. Now, Sam's a high-level tetraplegic. He has no upper extremity function whatsoever, cannot move his arms or hands. He cannot move any muscles below his neck. But he modified his Corvette with visual optical sensors so that he could drive a high-performance sports car using just his eyes and the movements of his head. Exoskeletons are another hugely interesting area of research. They're still in their sort of first generation stage. They're not fully functional for everyday use, but I don't think it's going to be too far off before people are developing the second generation of these neat robotic devices that may at some point in the future become a viable alternative to wheelchairs, and not just be useful for persons with mobility impairments due to things like spinal cord injury or MS or other neurological conditions, but may also provide ongoing mobility for aging populations and possibly incorporate fall protection. So certainly an interesting area that I think is going to gain a lot of traction over the coming years. But it's not just these small niche companies that are getting into adaptive equipment. The big boys are playing too. Microsoft recently launched their adaptive controller because they see a huge untapped market in persons with limited dexterity who want to game. And so they created an adaptive controller for their Xbox platform because they want to have access to that market. They want to be first there. They want to be known as the brand that delivers solutions for people with limited mobility. And as Apple and Elon Musk will tell you, first to market means a lot. Even Nike's getting into the game. The new Nike Flyees, they're launching a range of adaptive clothing products, including these very novel new shoes. So when you're seeing brands like Microsoft and Nike look at adaptive equipment, look at innovations for persons with mobility impairments or disabilities, you know that there's a market that is that people are looking at. And really, it's an untapped market. Spinal cord injury innovation is thriving. It's a perfect test bed for new innovations. As I said, there's a whole host of secondary complications that occur in individuals with spinal cord injury. And the unique thing is they all occur in a single individual. You want to work on pressure injuries? Look to spinal cord injury. You want to look at respiratory function? Look to spinal cord injuries. You want to look at lower limb mobility? Spinal cord injuries. You want to look at sexual function, spinal cord injuries. It's all there. And it's translatable to all of these other health conditions. There's a large untapped market, and as you can see from our partnership with the University of Toronto, University of Waterloo, University of Calgary, and University of Victoria on this challenge, Praxis is a leader in accelerating new innovations towards commercialization, and we'd love to work with you. So with that, I'll say thank you very much. I think I forgot to include my partner in that presentation, but I'll hand back to you, Joseph, to take over from here.
Yes, so we didn't actually get to hear from Richard this time, but maybe we won't let you off the hook. But now I think it's really important that we actually tell you what this challenge is about, what we're sort of going to be doing over the next 5 or 6 months, and why it's sort of an interesting opportunity. When we started talking about this, it's not just about the prize money that Praxis has put up. It's not just about necessarily the kind of community and innovation and the help we're trying to build. It's a pathway for all of us to learn how to better express our ideas, how to match our ideas with the needs of people we're trying to help, and how to go about getting funding. So this challenge, what makes it a little bit unique is that it is about developing ideas into things we can present to people, whether it's funding agencies that are government driven, not-for-profit funding agencies, philanthropic agencies, businesses potentially, as well as other commercialization arms within our society. So as we go forward, we'd like to explain the challenge, but before we do so, I'd just like to introduce some of the team that have actually put this all together in the last 12 days or so. And so let's, I think the next slide is the team slide, if we can move it forward. So I'd like, if we can just go and all of you to say, you've already met me, you've met Chris, but I'd like to introduce Jillian. Jillian, will you please say hello?
Hi, everyone. My name's Jillian. I'm the business and project director for the Praxis Ideation Challenge. Thank you so much for taking the time and joining us for this information session. We're extremely, extremely excited for everything that can happen and all the opportunities that are about to happen with this challenge. So thank you so much.
Zoya?
Hi everyone, I'm Zoya Retivala. If you're from the TRP, you're already very familiar with me. If you're not, for Praxis, I'm the Marketing and Communications Director. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask. And honestly, this is a very open challenge. So we're really happy and excited to hear your ideas.
And Tatiana?
Excellent. Behind the screen here, I'm Tatiana Skara, and I'm helping with judging and as a creative director of this Praxis Challenge. Really excited to see all of the ideas that are going to come through and excited to work with you all.
So there are actually a lot of other people that are related to this challenge that we'll introduce throughout the various weeks. But really, let's get to the meat of it. What we're doing here is we are trying to generate and help you generate and improve your ideas. And so as part of this challenge, as we move, there are a number of workshops. As we go through the workshops, they're intended and designed to help you develop pieces of your innovation, starting with understanding innovation and approaches to innovation, really making sure that we understand the need we're trying to address, the people we're trying to work with, and moving that into defining winning projects, looking at the various contexts. So it's very important that we talk about the opportunity here isn't just to do devices. We heard a lot of devices, but there can be a lot of other ways that we can improve the quality of life for people. And so understanding the different pathways, understanding regulatory, jurisdictional, legal, as well as pathways to market. We're also in workshop 4 going to look at opportunities for innovation. So how do we ideate? How do we create different types of innovation strategies? We're going to look at safety and efficacy, clinical trials, and we're going to be looking at how to implement and demonstrate prototypes. The goal of this is, as we go through this process, that there are things that will be interesting to different people. Some may be interesting to a number of people, and those of you that participate in the workshops throughout will get a certificate of participation. Others, that when you go through the workshops, you'll be able to submit a 2-minute video pitch. The best video pitch, as judged by our judges from our partner institutions and Praxis, will be awarded $3,000. But those of you that don't necessarily get that first award, you'll still be part of the journey with us. And as you improve, we'll select between 6 to 10 teams of people or projects that will then qualify for a live pitch so we can see the ideas. The winner of the live pitch will receive an additional $10,000. Then we will be moving towards the third prototyping leg of this challenge, and we have money for some teams to prototype, but also our partners, our partnering institutions will potentially pick students and people in their organizations to fund the prototyping and to support as we move forward. During demo days, the most promising prototype will then receive another $25,000 in support. But more importantly, the demo day will include a number of funders and a number of people that are the receptors of potentially commercializable ideas. So even if you don't win any of the small awards along the way, there is the potential that you can be a big winner, in that as you develop your idea, you'll be able to attract a funder, an investor, or an organization that's willing to help you and move you forward towards commercializing something that will help improve lives. Throughout all of this, there are 2 other key elements. The first one is the mentorship. So as we learn who you are and the ideas you're working for, we, the various institutional partners, the people involved, will reach out into our networks to provide you with key opinion leaders, experts in various fields, people with lived experience, people that we can sort of help mentor you towards refining and improving your ideas, which is the bottom line here. Finally, in terms of internships, we have partners including MyTax, Medventions, Innovate, and several others that will be looking for the ideas for interns that they can fund. And the funding will be based on sort of their criteria, but we will also have some funding from the prize money that Praxis has put in, that we can fund some independent internships, as well as we potentially through MyTax can match internships of researchers and clinicians out there that are looking for student interns. So part of this challenge is also to get people matched up to work on ideas together. It is my sincere hope that as we go through this together and as we expand our group of people involved in this, that we can actually maybe collaborate across the country. And I know there are some people from across the globe here, and that we'll be viewing. And it would be absolutely phenomenal if we can all work on something that ends up helping people. So that's the challenge in a nutshell. I'm going to give an opportunity for our partners to introduce ourselves very quickly, and then we will answer questions. So we have 4 institutions represented here. Let's start with SFU.
Great, that timing works well, Joseph, as I've got a 3 p.m. So very quickly, if you could just advance. I'm Alicia Main. I am a special advisor for innovation across SFU, and we have a platform called SFU Innovates, under which we have our various efforts to try to support innovation and entrepreneurship, and also specifically research-based innovation. Advance, please. So these 4 pillars: entrepreneurship, social innovation, incubation, acceleration, and industry and community research partnerships. Advance, please. And the part that I want to offer, if you can just keep advancing, unfortunately, it's set as a advanced slide. So I'm a researcher who focuses on trying to get breakthrough invention from the research lab and out into society, tackling pressing global needs like the ones that we heard about this morning. What I've found in 20 years of research on this topic is that there is much that can be done while still in the research lab. And I applaud this ideation effort and what we heard this morning about the things that can be considered in early stage research and how to try to systematically encourage and do that. So the program that we run at Invention to Innovation, that actually this year is also in Ontario and Quebec through partnership with MyTax, focuses on early stage capabilities that scientists can develop that can help them to better endow if they have a spinoff getting out of the university, and if not, to help them think about issues early on, for especially relevant to therapeutics, materials, nanotech, chemistry, chemical engineering, and the long journey it faces to get to market. So thank you. We're delighted to be a part, and we hope that we have several researchers on the call today with wonderful early stage inventions, and we hope to learn from this collaboration and to contribute to it.
Hi, everybody. The University of Calgary's me, Carrie Damon, the Executive Director of the Hunter Hub for Entrepreneurial Thinking. I just have a couple slides to introduce who we are. The first, if you could please advance. So I may be preaching to the choir on entrepreneurial thinking because of this group is a very entrepreneurial sort. What we love about this challenge that Praxis is doing with U of T and the rest of the partners is that it's very much in our sweet spot of entrepreneurial thinking. So entrepreneurial thinking is finding problems that matter to solve. So it's about being creative and finding innovative solutions. And we believe it applies to all faculties. So at the University of Calgary, the Hunter Hub works with all 14 faculties, as well as the traditional innovation groups and tech transfer centers, et cetera. Next slide. What's really interesting about the Hunter Hub for Entrepreneurial Thinking, it's one of a kind. I've never seen any center like it. It's a $40 million contribution from the Hunter Family Foundation to really think through how we can use entrepreneurial thinking as a tool to transform lives and economies. So we work with all areas of our university, from students to faculty to staff and the community and beyond. And our aspiration is to have 1/3 of students at the University of Calgary have an entrepreneurial thinking experience through interesting challenges like these on real world problems, or working for startups, or starting a startup themselves. Next slide. And then just a little picture. We're kind of, for those of you who the Hunter Hub is it's new to, the Hunter Hub is sort of the glue or the connective tissue across the university through the traditional innovative spheres of research and innovation to teaching and learning. We embed a lot of entrepreneurial thinking content in courses and connecting the community in Alberta and beyond. So we're delighted to be part of this national network, and I'm really looking forward to the ideas that come out of it. And that's all for me. Thanks.
Thank you, Carrie. I don't know if Chris is around.
Which Chris?
That's true. Chris B.
Sure.
Give a couple words about BME.
Sure. Well, let's advance the next slide. So we're at the University of Toronto, we have the Institute of Biomedical Engineering. This is a joint collaboration, mainly by engineering, but we also have involvement of medicine and dentistry. We're primarily a graduate institute. There's 300 graduate students. We've got a core group of faculty, but altogether there's 100 faculty members when you account for all the cross appointees and close collaborators. And we partner with all across the different academic and hospital partners, especially down there at UHN and Sunnybrook and many other examples. Where I kind of come in as the black sheep is I also am more heavily involved in the undergraduate side. So we still have our tentacles in undergraduate minor. If you're in one of the programs, you can take a minor program. And then there's also some major programs where students focus a little bit more on biomedical engineering. Yes, so maybe speaking specifically of, if you're in the Toronto area, maybe if we open things up, we've got some teaching facilities. So, we'll see if there's some fun projects. Maybe there's even some stem cells or cellular-based therapies. We can help you out there. We've got a great teaching lab full of microscopes and incubators, all sorts of stuff. And then we've got our humble yet very powerful design studio where we have spaces for students. We've got all sorts of physiological monitoring equipment. We got these things called bioradios where you put them on, you can measure all sorts of things, ECGs, EEGs, EMGs, all sorts of good stuff, and a small little prototyping space. And I think that's all the slides we have for BME.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So I'm just going to quickly, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the other U of T partners in this. Greatly appreciate the support of the Faculty of Applied Science and Engineering, BME, but also Mechanical and Industrial Engineering, as well as the Temerty Faculty of Medicine. And the specific departments include medical imaging, psychiatry, surgery, pediatrics, and the Department of Medicine. And then 3 organizations within that, Medical Innovations Toronto, Health Innovation Hub, which is our Faculty of Medicine incubator, and the Translational Research Program, which I know some of our students are here, who do this and work on problems of bringing ideas into society that help people. So just acknowledge those before we go on to our next institution.
Perfect. Thank you, Joseph. So I'll start off by thanking Praxis for the great partnership that they've had with the University of Waterloo. We've been very happy and very excited. And I also want to take the opportunity to thank the University of Toronto and Joseph for organizing this and initiating this. And it looks to be a very exciting initiative. The University of Waterloo has put together stakeholders from the Center for Bioengineering and Biotechnology, which I represent, but also the Faculty of Engineering and the Faculty of Health to put teams together towards this initiative. What really excites me personally about this initiative is that Waterloo has a good reputation in entrepreneurship, and we'll get to that in a slide. But really, it's the clinical piece, engaging with users who actually are suffering from spinal cord injuries, learning from them, and of course, designing solutions with that input in mind, and then leading to validation with them as well. That is really, really exciting. I think we're going to get something that works out of that. Next slide, please. For those of you who may not be familiar with Waterloo, we have 4 pillars: the academic strength, experience-rich education, of course, which is cooperative education, research, and a very strong startup culture. I'll dwell for a couple of minutes on the startup culture. Next slide, please. So Waterloo has a good history with startups. In 2015, according to PitchBook, entrepreneurs raised 2.6 billion. There's about 2 billion in corporate value for accelerator companies. It's the #1 school in Canada for venture capital-backed entrepreneurs. More than 2,300 jobs have been created by companies just out of Velocity, which is the Waterloo incubator. And more than 315 companies have been created from Waterloo. Now, this information is a few years old. I apologized. I pulled a slide that I've used some years back, but it kind of gives you an idea that Waterloo is big on entrepreneurship and innovation. That's kind of what we do. And what we're really excited about with regards to this Praxis partnership, as well as working with the University of Toronto and the other academic institutions, is really the clinical engagement, the clinical validation with the users. I'll stop there.
All right. So I believe now we're just going to open it up to questions and do our best to answer. Sorry, it's my fault. So this is a launch. The reason it's a launch is because we're starting out. So we are still looking for both participants, but also advisors, co-creators, mentors, judges, and sponsors. So if any of you are interested, there are a number of different roles that we can create. And if you're interested, check out our website, which is ideation.clinic. And we will be putting updates and information there, both from the challenge and from our partners of activities that they may be hosting and holding over the next several months that relate to this space. Okay, so with that, I'd like to thank our title sponsor, Praxis, for providing the opportunity to get us all together across the country and to meet with people who have lived experience, to develop a curriculum that will help all of us hopefully come up with new and interesting ideas that we can move towards commercialization and helping those living with spinal cord injuries. Thank you. And most of all, I want to thank my team, and I want to thank all of the people that have put so much energy in this, in putting together this last hour and a bit, because really they did all the work, and it's without them we wouldn't be able to have this chance to move forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Joseph, and all the partners. We're really, really delighted and excited about it.
So let's open it up. I think there's a bunch of different questions, and we'll do our best to answer them. Can you have an affiliation with any organization? Yes, we absolutely. So this is a pilot. This is a test. We are living innovation and ideation together with you. We are open to exploring how this works out. So you do not have to be affiliated with the program. If you have a great idea that will help people, we want to help you develop. That's part of our role as both universities, institutions. We're here to develop ideas, to train people, to teach people, to support this type of thinking. So you do not actually have to be a student or a faculty member. You do not have to be related to any one of the sort of 4 institutions that are here. If you are part of a different institution, that's perfectly fine. What we are leveraging is some of the expertise that the various institutions bring to the table in terms of research, in terms of education, in terms of sort of our faculty and some of our resources, in order to be able to sort of help support you in developing your ideas.
And Joseph, would it be accurate to say that you don't need to be associated to any academic institution whatsoever? You could just be an individual with an idea. Is that correct?
Yes. Look, we want to support people developing ideas, period, that help people. Could you provide a of the ideation stage, for instance? Okay, so the ideation stage. So ideation is essentially coming up with a testable idea. It's not like a brainstorm where you just throw everything out. Being able to come up with as many ideas as possible and then shape them into something that you can test and improve iteratively is part of this whole challenge and part of the whole process. So our goal is to try and work with people who have lived experience, who provide us with insights and into what the needs are in this space, so we can come up with ideas or take existing ideas and move them forward towards presentation to funders. I see another question. How is the market for all these technologies? Because they seem to be expensive based on their technology and probably not affordable for many people with SCI.
Can I jump in on this one, Joseph?
Yeah, absolutely.
This is something we definitely work with every day. So the short answer is yes. That's why there's been issues in getting the right products at the right time to the right people. There are some issues around market sizing, traditional market sizing, and accessibility. You know, one thing that John always tells me, you know, the household income of most individuals with SCI is below, you know, it's around 40K or lower. So that's the problem we're trying to solve. And the way we do that is, one, every product that you're going to be developing here, yes, it's working with people with spinal cord injury, but there's a lot of adjacent conditions, whether you know, brain injury or MS or cerebral palsy. If you look at, okay, can this be applicable for SCI, but what are adjacent markets? We really solve that solution. So the technologies that we've seen that have been really effective, like Braze and a few others, they are very consumer centric and consumer focused. They understand the nuances between the different conditions, but they're solving a common problem. So that's one way to get around it. Two, there's a great opportunity to create prototypes that are low cost. You know, the active hands example, for example, what John shared, it's not an expensive device, but it has had transformative impacts on people's independence. So really thinking through what's a cheap, accessible prototype that is going to create the benefit without creating this very expensive product that is difficult to access. So one of the things, you know, as judges of the competition is we're going to look at accessibility, and we're looking at how you're addressing that through your size of market, but to the cost of your design or the future cost of your design going forward.
Okay, so the question of someone has put forward, do we need research ethics? So this is an ideation, early stage ideation to commercialization challenge. It is not really intended for publications per se, and it is not really intended to deliver drugs in a controlled environment for people. So if there are innovations that you are working on that do test on human live subjects, you will need to have your institutional REBs and approvals. The rules apply in terms of what institution you're with. For the purposes of this challenge, we are helping you refine your ideas into prototypes and test and demonstrate them. we're not looking at sort of the research ethics board submissions or type research. So we do, the people that are living with SCI, we will do our best to connect you with people. Praxis has been amazing to try and connect with people in their networks and people who have lived experience, and that both in terms of people who may want to express their needs, but also be co-creators, inventors, innovators themselves. And so part of the challenge, these are the things we will support. Part of our budget is allocated potentially to working with and compensating people that work with our teams to better develop their ideas. Are people at Praxis looking at working with government ministries, things listed within the publicly funded system?
I can take that. Absolutely. In fact, Praxis is predominantly government funded. So WD, one of our key sponsors, is a federal organization that funds the work. And we have very strong partnerships at the national level. What's really important to understand is, while that's absolutely the case, Praxis has an agnostic evidence-based approach. So we don't do capital A advocacy. And a lot of times companies and individuals think they find it hard to figure out where we fit in the system. We're really here to build the evidence, build the consumer engagement, build the research awareness, build a community need, and present that evidence, and bring the right partners together to innovate, to commercialize, to get the best minds in terms of research. But we don't advocate in that capital A sense. But government relations and working through government agencies is part and parcel of what we do every day.
Thank you for that. The goal of this is to try and bring people together to brainstorm and come up with ideas and move them forward to prototypes. So that's what we do. Not have set needs or domains or necessarily even ideas of where this innovation can come to and can go. We want to, as a pilot, our goal is to remain as open, as flexible as possible. So our goal is to try and see what we can support and how much we can support in various ways. So if you have a stem cell intervention, it's probably not something that can be developed in 3 to 4 months. However, we have clinicians in our networks that we will try and put you with, and experts to try and figure out a plan of how to develop your idea towards commercialization. There are things that you need to think of when you're translating any kind of knowledge or research fundamentally from beginning towards product. And that means that although you may not be able to develop the cell line during the time of this challenge, we can introduce you to experts that you can talk to about framing and developing your idea for funding. How will you bring innovators with end users? Will it be through getting to know participants and users and being so-called matchmakers? Well, yeah, we're going to invite them. We're going to ask them for their opinions and help. And just like we're going to ask people to participate. So we're going to match people, and what we're trying to do is provide an open sandbox for people to come and play together. And that's basically it. And I think if there are people that have needs and people who want to help address those needs, and then there are people who want to play together, we're going to have a great time over the next 5-6 months.
Can I jump in here with a slight additional point? So it's really important to recognize, how you're engaging an end user. Are they a co-founder? Are they a collaborator? or are they providing you input? Because one of the things we work with all day is if they're providing input, I understand your entrepreneurial budget, but you need to recognize their time and you need to value their time. And so that involves, it might involve a gift card. It might involve asking them, what could you do in exchange? Because we see in the healthcare space, a lot of end users who have limited time and also, have sometimes below average household income, you're taking their time, or not you, but founders taking their time without realizing the implications. So be really thoughtful around, yes, we'll create a sandbox. We want it to be free flowing, but as a founder or potential founder, think through how you're engaging. Are they co-founder? Are they collaborator? Are they providing input? And if you, in the next session with John and Richard, they'll walk you through that and use that as a great opportunity. John and Richard are awesome. They're really open to your questions to figure out how you want to engage in a smart way. If you're not sure, it's totally okay to not be sure. That's the point. And being thoughtful and asking the right questions is what's important on that piece.
And I think that's the key is communicating and being thoughtful. And we're here to help facilitate so that everyone can play nicely together in an equitable and playground safe space. I see another question about market size, and these are things I don't know off the top of my head, but these are things you can research and we'll work on in our first couple of sessions about how to get market research and knowledge. And we have various infrastructures in place where we can help you with that research. The other thing, does it have to be a science-based intervention? No, it's a pilot. We don't want to start out by setting limitations. If you can do music therapy that involves making someone less stressed, let's do music together. If you can figure out some other way, as long as there is somebody that has a need and you're able to innovate towards that need, will help you iteratively improve your ideas. That's what this challenge is about. Take your ideas, find people that want those things, and how do we help you move them forward? I have to say this is a bit awkward because I'm not used to just reading various questions as they scroll by, and I know I'm missing some. So anyone, feel free to jump in and ask questions if I've missed them that are burning. Sorry, go ahead.
I think that this is an important question to get on the recording, but one person did ask the question, what will happen to IP? Arushi addressed it in the chat. Can we just address that question up front here?
Absolutely. So that's the one part that we're very, very actually fairly clear and muddy on. Neither Praxis nor the Ideation Clinic Challenge or its representatives, or the U of T as the lead organizer, make any claims to any of the IP produced as part of this challenge, because it's an ideation challenge. You can't really patent ideas. You can patent expressions. So we are doing this to support innovation, and we are not making any IP claims, nor if people come in with background IP, it's up to you to ensure that you have the licenses and the rights to use that IP. It is the responsibility of the participants. However, our institutional partners, should they decide to fund projects or work specifically with teams, they will be applying their individual institutional policies towards the funding of those projects. So meaning that before you sign any contracts, if someone's willing to give you money for any reason, you should read the contract, because individual institutional support mechanisms may apply. Does that answer the the cone of silence, confidentiality, and complete trust amongst us until otherwise told. Sort of. Look, one of the biggest fears that I find as a mentor for the Health Innovation Hub, but also for students, everyone is really afraid right away that someone's going to steal your ideas. Let's not share ideas, because until we sign non-disclosure agreements, until we sign some sort of paperwork that makes sure it's mine. Well, the reality is that any non-disclosure agreement is only as strong as you are able to litigate it. If you don't have millions of dollars and Google does, they will, no matter what you've signed with them, be able to stop whatever it is you're doing. I happen to know Google does not sign non-disclosure agreements because they can't enforce them, because they don't know what's happening in their own company at any one time. So the fact of the matter is, if you have an idea, that's only the beginning. Ideas are not something you can patent. Ideas are not something that you can quote unquote protect. It's how you execute that idea, where you are and what you do with it, how you express that idea, that really matters. And the reality is that no two ideas are done the same way, because each team, each group does things differently. So being not sharing ideas is actually a barrier to innovation. But also, it's also important, and it's part of this challenge, to learn how do you express your ideas without giving the farm away. So you don't give away your secret sauce. You don't give away your research up front. You have to be able to walk a fine line between telling somebody, an investor, what is your idea and what it may do and how it may help people and raise the money, without telling them specifically how it is that you're doing it, because you don't want to give up the IP rights. And that is a lesson and something that you will need to learn how to do if you are going to be innovative in any domain. Does that answer the IP question?
If we have just a minute, can we address just one more question about whether needs will be given to us in this challenge, or do we have to collaborate and identify needs?
You have to work with people. This is about lived experience and helping real people. If you come up with an idea or a need out of your head, great. But unless somebody actually wants it, and unless it's useful to somebody, then what's the point? So it's all open, folks, but it can't just be out of your heads. You've got to make sure there are people that want it.
Hi, Joseph. Can I jump in for a second?
Absolutely.
Hi. Yeah, hi. My name is Michael Garton. I'm an assistant professor at the University of Toronto, and I'm also a C4-5 quadriplegic. And I'd be more than happy to run some kind of session identifying, if people are looking for problems to solve, I'd be more than happy to run some kind of session, talking through some of the challenges that I know I face and other people in the spinal cord injury community face. So, if someone wants to organize that, or I can, just get in touch and we can do that.
We will absolutely help organize that.
Yeah, Michael, I'd love to connect with you and see how we can get you more involved in this challenge. This is awesome.
Fantastic, thanks.
That is awesome. All right. I see in the chat Paul, who's an instructor from various institutions, and himself an entrepreneur and well connected, also said there has to be a product market fit. That's what you got to figure out. Is there a fit? Will people want what you are trying to develop? And the best way to figure that out is to start by talking to the people that want what you're trying to do. Okay.
Joseph, there is another question. Tasneem has asked, do you also connect us with PTs, medical staff, if you were looking at assistive devices for caregivers?
Yes, we absolutely can do that in our networks between our 4 institutions. We have access to hospitals, to engineering departments, to medical departments, to PT, OT, various researchers in those spaces. So we absolutely can do that. I think that's the strength of what we're doing here, is that we're bringing a bunch of people together to share and figure out how we can connect the dots between people and resources and ideas. All right, so thank you all of those who stayed with us and this long. I really look forward to seeing all of you and working with you over the next several months, and let's see what we can come up with. Thank you. This is really, really cool. So have a great day, great evening, and register for their first workshop, and we'll keep you updated with announcements. So register for MailChimp as well. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, Joseph. Bye. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.